Hey everybody, this is part 2 of our review for our Unit 5 test in Integrated Math 2. So in the part 1, you guys, we graphed some exponential functions and we stated the domain, range, and behavior, along with some parabolas that opened up or down and stated the domain, range, and behavior. And then we did a little bit of solving equations by taking the square root. In this lesson, we're going to solve quadratics by completing the square, by using the quadratic formula, and then we'll simplify some expressions with involving I, remember I, and then at the very end, we're going to write some equations of circles given the center and some other characteristics. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. Okay, so solve each by completing the square and keep answers as exact values like 5 root 2 or something like that, okay? All right, so, whoops, I did one thing too many right there. That's okay. So here's the first one right here. Just pretend like that's not there. That's okay. Um, uh, so I have x squared minus 5x minus 20. So what we got to do is we're gonna I re-spaced it out because we're gonna put a number in front of there, okay? And so whatever we add to that side, we have to add to that side, okay? So this is the same equation right here as over here. I'm just gonna add a number, and the number I'm gonna add is I'm gonna take half of this number, 5 halves, and square that, okay? Stay away from your calculators right there, okay? Because you just learn the principles of this, or you lose learning the principles when you pick up those calculators. So half of 5 is 5 halves. So when I square 5 halves, that gives me 25 fourths. So that's the number that we add to both sides. All right, so now what we're going to do is simplify this side over here, okay? We're going to get a negative number right here, which means we're going to get imaginary solutions. In fact, we get on many of these on this lesson. So I'm going to convert this to negative 20 over 1 to negative 80 over 4. That way we have a common denominator right there, okay? So there that is right there, negative 80 over 4 plus 25 over 4. When we add those together, we get negative 55 over 4, and 55 is only 11 times 5, so nothing comes out. So when we factor the left-hand side, we get x minus, and I always ask my student, his name is Kellen, I say, what sign is in the middle, Kellen? And he'd notice it's a minus, and so we put a minus inside of there. So x here, square root of this red guy right here goes here, so the square root of 25 fourths is 5 halves. And then over here we just simplified, negative 20 plus 25 fourths gave us this right here. Now we square root both sides, and don't forget your plus or minus, otherwise Josh, I'll hit you with my window stick. Okay? And so don't forget the I. We're going to separate the top and bottom up, and don't forget the I. The square root of 4 is 2, so we get I root 55 over 2. Don't forget your plus or minus. So now I'm gonna go ahead and add this guy. So plus 5 halves. I'll go plus 5 halves over here. So that's what you're going to see next. And so we get 5 halves plus or minus I root 55 halves. They have common denominator, so we can just say 5 plus or minus I root 55 all over 2. Isn't that a radical answer? Heck yeah. All right, here we go. So let's do this one here. What are you doing, Lucy? What do you got? You got a ball? We'll go find it. Where's your ball? Wait a minute. I see it. Just a minute. Okay. Sorry, I got a dog. She likes to, I don't know what it is when I play videos when I record videos. She thinks it's playtime, and so we got to play squeaky here. So you don't hear squeaky because she tore it out. It's a little ball. Anyway, so let's add 11 to both sides, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and, first, I don't want the negative x squared, so I want it to be a positive x squared before we complete the square. So since it was negative x squared, we just multiplied everything times negative 1. We multiplied both sides of the equation by negative 1, so we get that. So now we're going to add out the plus 11 now, so we get minus 11. Then we take half of the 6, okay? We always take half of this number squared. So half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So we're going to add a plus 9 and a plus 9 over there. Okay? And then now we can factor this. Okay, so over here, if I said, okay, Kellen, what sign goes in the middle? He'd say a plus. This becomes x plus 3 squared. Over here, this adds to negative 2. So x plus 3 squared equals negative 2. Then you square root both sides. And Josh, if you forget your plus or minus, I'm going to get my window stick and smack you across the shoulders. Josh knows I'm kidding. So my window stick is a stick that locks the window in my classroom. Anyways, don't forget your plus or minus, okay? Don't forget the I now. Now we're going to pull the I out and then subtract 3. There's our answer. Okay, that was a little easier than the other one because there wasn't fractions. Okay, here we're going to subtract 8 on both sides, and then half of 2. Half of 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1, and then so we get that. Don't forget your plus or minus when you square root. Okay, and the I, we pulled the I out of the square root of -7, subtract 1. There's our answer right there. Okay, so now we're going to solve using the quadratic formula. So keep each answer as an exact answer, okay? No decimals, okay? So the quadratic formula is this, and it has to equal 0, okay? So what we do is we do opposite this number. So over here is going to be -4 plus or minus the square root of this number. So plus or minus the square root of 4 squared, sorry, minus 4 times this number, which is 1, times this number, which is 1, all over 2 times a, which is that number right there. So there it is right there. Okay, let's clean it up. 16 minus 4 is 12, and then 12. I like to do prime factorization of 12, factor trees. Do you remember doing that? 4 times 3, and then 4 breaks down to 2 times 2. So 12 is 2 times 2 times 3. And then 2 2's on the inside brings one of those 2's on the outside. And then right here, since these are all divisible by 2, that 2 goes into that, and that, and that, then let's divide everything by 2. Okay, so if we divide everything by 2, we get that right there, all over 1, which is just that, okay? All right, let's do another one here. Okay, so it's equal to 0, so we're going to use the quadratic formula. So -8 squared is 64, and then 4 times 27 is 108. 64 minus 108 gets me a -44, okay, which is I root 44, or I root 2 times 2 times 11. A pair of 2's come out, and then divide everything by 2. There's the answer, okay? All right, so here we go. Now this one doesn't equal 0, so we have to make it equal to 0 by subtracting that 4x from both sides. Now we have a, b, c, so we just go ahead and crank it out. And then when we simplify that inside, we get a -40. So that's going to be I root positive 40, and 40 is, I think it's 8 times 5. Yeah, 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. Okay, a pair of 2's come out, and you go ahead and multiply the other leftover numbers in there, 2 times 5. Everything can be divisible by 2, so when you divide everything by 2, we get that. Okay, so let's simplify these guys. These guys are the easy free points on the test, I think. So this says square, so I have to square everything in the parentheses. I got to square the 7 and the I, so it's going to be 7 squared times I squared. Remember, I squared equals -1, so 49 times -1 is -49. Okay, let's try this one. All right, very common error is people want to square those two numbers and think that's going to be the answer, but that's a binomial. We have to write it twice and FOIL it out. So let's go ahead and FOIL that out. So I get that, first times first, outer, outer, inner, inner, last, last, and then so it gets me to that. And then and right here, you guys, you didn't see that. So right here, I squared is -1, so this became -4 right there. That's why this is -4, because of the I squared. I squared is -1, so it just changes the sign of this number right here. Okay, so 9 minus 4 is 5, so 5 minus 12i. All right, so what do we have here? Okay, so now we got to square this. So we got to square everything. I'm going to square this 4, so 4 squared, I squared over root 7 squared. Everything's being squared inside that radical. 4 squared is 16, 16I squared, which is -16, and then when you square a radical disappears, so root 7 squared is just 7. All right, okay, so here we go. So this one here, you guys, I just dropped the parentheses. I think I clicked one too many. So if there's just a plus sign in front of it, you don't need to have those parentheses, and it's just combining like terms. 9 plus 2 is 11, -4i, plus 3i is -1i, or just -i. Okay, here, let's FOIL this out. Okay, first, outer, inner, last. And then don't forget, 2i squared is 2 times -1, so that -2i squared becomes plus 2. All right, 35 plus 2 is 37. 37 minus 9i, okay? And let's try this one here. Okay, this one, these guys are conjugates of each other. If you can recognize they're conjugates of each other, see how this is 9 plus 2y, 9 minus 2y. They're the same binomial, except one has a plus, one has a minus. The trick is, you can FOIL this out, you'll get the same answer. But the trick is, you just square the first guy and square the second guy and put a subtraction sign in between them. So we get 9 squared minus 2y squared. 9 squared is 81, minus 2y squared is a minus 4i squared, which becomes a plus 4. So 81 plus 4 is 85, okay? Easy enough. All right. Now this last part here, we're going to write equations of circles, okay, given this characteristic, okay? So they give you the center and the radius, and there's our equation of a circle. We're going to use this on all of them. So we do x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals whatever the radius squared. So x minus a minus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals 8 squared. Okay, that's all we're doing. Let's just clean it up. There it is right there. So minus a minus 3 is plus 3, and 8 squared is 64. All right, how about this guy right here? So here we have the center there, and the radius is the square root of 6. So we do the same thing. So x minus 5 squared plus y minus 0 squared equals that radius squared. And when we square that radical, makes the radical disappear. So it's just plain old 6. And then y minus 0 is just y. So we get x minus 5 squared plus y squared equals 6. Okay, all right, this one's a little different, you guys. So there's a couple of correct ways to do it. I think it's easiest to have everybody buy into this. So put in the hk right there. So x minus a minus 2 squared is x plus 2 squared, plus y minus 1 squared equals whatever the radius is squared. Now there's two ways to get the radius. One way is you can substitute in, or you can do distance formula between this point and this point. Okay, because your circle that's the center and it goes through that, so just think it's some circle right here, and then the center, this would be the distance formula with these two guys. But I think it's easier to substitute in that for x and that for y into our equation that we have halfway gotten and solve for the radius squared. Okay, so check this out. So plug in 5 comma negative 2, simplify that, and we get the radius squared is equal to 58. Now we don't need the radius, we need the radius squared for our equation, so that just goes back up there. Okay, so there's that equation right there. Let's try another one of these, you guys, just like that. Okay, so the center is hk at 1 comma 8, so x minus 1 squared plus y minus 8 squared equals the radius squared. Then we'll substitute in 0 and negative 11. Okay, so 0 minus 1 squared plus negative 11 minus 8 squared equals the radius squared. Okay, 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Negative 11 minus 8 is negative 19. So now I'm going to square those. So we get 1 plus 361, or 362. So that goes up there. There's our answer right there. Okay, you guys, I'll have part 3 up shortly, and take care.